All right, Jabal, say good evening. Good evening. So on a serious note, I ask your mechila. I hope you've seen over the years how seriously I try to take timeliness in our shiurim, to try to start on time, and chas v'shalom never to waste anyone's time. So I apologize. I was just at a chasana that just went late, and they had asked me to read the ksuva, and I felt bad asking them to reshuffle the kibudim, so I was a little bit stuck. So I apologize. I ask your mechila, as I know that everyone's time is incredibly precious and everyone's time is incredibly important, and so I chas v'shalom would never intentionally chas v'shalom wasted, especially a chodesh el, a week and a half before Rosh Hashanah. So I ask your mechila and Emir Hashem, the Kabbalah to be better in the future. So we'll say, so tonight we are continuing in our limud of the Piazetzna. And I will say, so, and again, I really would urge you, it's not a fundraiser, but I would urge you, it's kedai to own the sefer. Don't live your life out of copies. Don't be a Xerox Jew. Right? Own it. When you on a serious note, when you buy a sefer, you're saying that this is important to me. It's the same way. You buy a ticket to go to a sporting event, you could just watch it on TV. No, because buying a ticket, that I'm vested. You buy a sefer, it's yours. It's vested. You put your name in it. It's on your sheet. And again, they're paid for. This is not like we don't need to move merchandise. I'm saying this because, again, the only way a person grows in their learning is if they invest in their learning. I invest time in my learning. I invest resources in my learning. And the truth is, a sheet comes and goes. You have it 1 week, you don't have it the next week. A sefer, this is yours forever. It's yours. It goes to your children. It goes to your children's children. And the Meretz Hashem generations down the line will open up the Zaydas, B'nai Machshava Tova, and the Zayda learn this sefer. And the Meretz Hashem, your Einik Lach, will go ahead and continue in the same way. So with that, let us begin. And if that box has one sefer left at the end of the shiur, right? Good. All right, good. All right. So we are continuing tonight. On Daf. What did I put over here? Page 10. So we'll say page 11 actually. So we're beginning again. Then David, thank you. A new commission. Get your beers here. Right, to get your beers, yeah. So we are continuing Emir Hashem this evening on page 11, the Seder Emtsoi V'Yisod HaChavra. So we'll say here we're going to begin to get in with the Piazetzna a little bit more into what it is that we're trying to accomplish. If you remember again last week, we spoke about criteria for entry into the chaburah. What qualities does a person have to possess? And that we saw again in Os Dalid, we saw again 5 different criteria that a person has to possess in order to enter into the chaburah. Now the Piazetzna is going to begin to discuss a little bit more, what is it that they're trying to accomplish? Well, when we're part of this chaburah b'nei Machshava Tova, what is it that we are trying to accomplish? So I will say, take a look at Os Aleph, page 11, Os Aleph. Says the Piazetzna, HaPasuk miyaser sisava omer, v'tishkach kel mechololeka. So the pasuk, when speaking about, this is part of the tochacha, part of the curses and rebuke of Klal Yisrael for when they do not follow in the ways of the Torah. So the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, Moshe Rabbeinu says, what was Klal Yisrael's mistake? Batishkach kel mechololeka. Ultimately, again, we forgot Hashem. It's interesting that when Moshe Rabbeinu tries to frame what it is that Klal Yisrael did so terribly, at the end of the day, the transgression was shichacha. We forgot HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ze ikar hasiba shemerachakes as ha'adam min elokav. And Abba said, this shichacha, this forgetting of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is ultimately what distances man from the Ribono Shel Olam. Ubitfilasal shel Rabbi Elimelech, so he quotes over here Rabbi Elimelech of Lezhensk, Noam Elimelech, the Rebbe says, Tehei machshavosinu zaka, tzelula, uberura vechazaka. So Rabbi say, the Piazetzna over here is highlighting something amazing. The Noam Elimelech had a tefillah that he used to say every single day before davening. And what would he ask for in this tefillah? He said, Ribono Shel Olam, let our machshavosinu, our thoughts, be zaka, tzelula, berura, vechazaka. Literally translucent, clear. Berura is also clear and strong. So what the Rebbe was davening for Rabbi say was clarity of thought. Let me have clarity of thought in life. Moshe Rabbeinu says, Klal Yisrael, why do you get yourself into trouble? Vatishkach kel mechololeka. We forget. What's forgetfulness? Forgetfulness is the antithesis of clarity of thought. When I have clarity, I know, I remember. When I forget, I lack that clarity. And the Rebbe goes on and he says something amazing. V'chol ish yodea. Abba say, listen to what he's describing over here, and this is going to be a beautiful tie-in to Yamim Noraim as well. Every person knows. Shebe'im hayoroa be'einav mamish echu omer lifnei Hashem. If a person was really able to see with his own eyes that he's literally standing before Hashem, if a person was actually able to see that, lo haya lo shum yetzahara, person would have no yetzahara. Person would have no yetzahara. Adrabah, eskol nafsho v'chol nishmaso hayamotzi b'diburim kidoshim lifnei Hashem, ad she'isbatal kulo v'yiskala ayedeim bo yisbarach. So the Piaget says something amazing. If we're really able to see, if we had true clarity of thought as to what it means to stand before the Ribono Shel Olam, to truly stand before Hashem, the Rebbe says, there will be no Yetzirah. There will be no Yetzirah. Because we'll say, what's the Yetzirah? How does the Yetzirah work? You know, it's interesting. What's the first line in Shulchan Aruch? Well, the truth is, the first line in Shulchan Aruch is Kum Ka'ari, get up like a lion. The first line in the Ramah says, how does the Ramah open up his commentary on Shulchan Aruch? Shivisi Hashem lenegdi samit. I place Hashem before me at all times. And the Balatanya, so why does the Shulchan Aruch begin with that? Right? Why is that the first line of Shulchan Aruch is a book of halacha, and the Balatanya, the Shner Zalman of Liadi says something so beautiful. The Balatanya says, what's Shivisi Hashem lenegdi? So what does it mean? I place Hashem before me at all times. What does that mean practically? It's God awareness. The Balatanya says God awareness. That I recognize that I live my life lifnei Hashem. I live my life in a perpetual state of being before God. And so the Ramah says, before we get into all the things you should do, you shouldn't do, how you should do it, how you shouldn't do it, Lemaisa, where does it all start for a Yid? Where does it all start for a Jew? I live in the presence of the Ribono Shel Olam. And that recognition that I'm constantly, I was saying, in the presence of the Ribono Shel Olam, that creates a clarity of thought. That's what the Rebbe is describing over here when he says, if I had real clarity of thought, I would know that I stand before Hashem. And when I stand before Hashem, everything becomes clear. The Yetzirah is gone. Rabbi said, does anyone have a Yetzirah, a taiva to sin when they are lifnei Hashem, when they know that they're in the presence of God? Absolutely not. Absolutely. I'll give you like lahavdil, even though the PhD said not supposed to talk about politics. You know, it's amazing. I'm very enthralled by watching all of the mourning procedures for the Queen in England. And it's fascinating to see. I spoke about this on Shabbos. Fascinating to see, because the truth is, you can see what Malchus is, you can see what royalty is, how royalty acts, and it's an amazing thing. So you have people, like if you look, you have people when they shuffle before it. I forgot what the technical term is, but when they're walking by the coffin, I guess the procession, like it's like you can see, it's like yira, it's like an awe, a reverence. And could anyone imagine getting on the... By the way, the one thing you'll never find in front of the Queen's casket is the same thing you'll find in every single Shul Shachris Mincha Ma'ariv, which is what? Cell phone ringing, right? No one's cell phone is going off in front of the Queen. It's an incredible thing. Now, I guarantee you, I would bet money on this. Not one cell phone. Shachris, you can't get through brachas, right? Somebody's phone is going off. Right? We staged that. We did that. We arranged that beforehand. Why? By the way, excellent. What's the pshat? Because when they're going in front of the Queen, they recognize that, you know what? I'm lifnei, in this case, lifnei Malka. I'm in front of the Queen. And when you have an awareness that you're in front of the Queen, that mandates a certain level of behavior. So the Piaget says something amazing. He says, can you imagine if we went through life with real God awareness? Now, I will say, you'll say, I have God awareness. I know that Hashem exists. That's not the God awareness that he's talking about. That I know that Hashem exists, that's obvious. God awareness that he's describing over here is a recognition that I am before the Ribono Shel Olam at all times. If I lived my life with that awareness, that Machshava Tzelula, that clarity of thought, how different my life would be. The Piaget still goes on. He says, if I recognize that I was before Hashem, there would be no Yetzer Hara. Adrabah. Es kol nafsho v'chol nishmaso hayomotzi b'diburim kidoshin lifnei Hashem. Ad sheyisbatel kulo v'yiskalo ayedeim bo yisbarach. The Rebbe said, not only would my Yetzer Hara not be able to exert an influence on me, but what else? I would be so overwhelmed by Tov, so overwhelmed by good, that the Yetzer Hara simply would not have the oxygen, it wouldn't have the air to be able to survive. V'lo zu, af zu shebesha sherak daito machshavtu chazaka b'Hashem, gam kein margish kol echad biatzmo bitla Yetzer Hara. V'chol arso shemifafeh b'chushe gufo b'tilim az la'Hashem. The Rebbe said, the Piagesna says, you might think to yourself, I have no idea what the Rebbe is saying. I can't relate to this dynamic of being lifnei Hashem, of literally being in the presence of God, where I feel no Yetzer Hara. The Piagesna says, yes, we can relate to it. How could we relate to it? Look what he writes. Va'im ein kol echad mi Yisrael margish l'mashal b'yom kippurim ubefrat be'is kol nidrei uni'ila bater kol taiva bitul kol taiva v'hira v'ratzon lo tov. Rebbe said, let me ask you a question. And don't answer it, you'll just think about it. Hey, we all have different taivas, right? We all have different desires that many times we think about throughout the course of the day. I will say, is anybody thinking about their taivas during the Ilah? Kol nidrei maybe a little bit, right? Because you just ate, you're full, you're just coming up, whatever, right? By Ne'ilah, does anyone think about the taivas that plague them throughout the... Okay, maybe you're thinking about eating. Okay, that's understandable. But I'm talking about the taivas. I'm talking about the lust, the desires that so often derail us in life. Is anyone thinking about that during the Ilah? So you'll say to yourself, oh, of course not, because I'm exhausted, right? I'm too tired. So the Piagesna says, that's not it. It's that by the time I go through a Yom Kippur, I have an acute awareness that what? That I am lifnei Hashem. That I am before the Ribono Shel Olam. And when I know that I am before the Ribono Shel Olam, by definition, what that leads to is a bitul Yetzer Hara. When I recognize that I am before God, both say it's not the pshat that the Yetzer Hara necessarily disappears, but it's reined in. It's reined in. When I know that I am Lifnei Hashem, it's reined in. He goes on, he says, Mibnei shemachshavto bara chazaka az b'Hashem. So I will say, why is it that I have no taivas during the Ilah? Besides eating, right? Why is that no taivas? Because I have clarity of thought. And what's my clarity of thought? I am Lifnei Hashem. Clarity of thought, Rabbi was saying. And I would tell you, by the way, I think, to me, I always look forward to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur for one simple reason. When else do you have hours of time to contemplate nothing else except your relationship with the Ribono Shel Olam? Right? It would be nice to think about that we do it by Shachris. We don't do it by Shachris really during the week, right? Because we just got to go. Mincha Ma'ariv, usually most of life, I have to be somewhere else. I was thinking, I was supposed to say, Rabbi Yaakov and I were just at the same chasana. I was thinking about this. They had a Barry Weber was singing at the chasana. Mamish beautiful. Yaakov, what was the song he sang? That was one of my favorite songs. He taught it to me by Lag BaOmer. Rebone Kol, the most magnificent song. And I'm listening to it, and I realized, okay, I can't get into it. Why can't I get into it? Because I'm thinking to myself, I told this year I'm going to be there at 8:10, right? Unless the Ribono Shel Olam picked me up from the wedding and literally put me down. There's no one's getting there by 8:10. So I'm thinking, should I send another message? Not send another message. I'll call Steve. Maybe there's food left. Maybe we could order some more. Maybe Steve could go back home, fry up another something, whatever.
Do it at the barbecue.
At the barbecue, okay, maybe. So I'll say, but it struck me, and I realized, I was so upset at myself, because here, one of my favorite songs in the entire world that moves my neshama in such a dramatic way, I can't enjoy it. Why can't I enjoy it? Because I need to be somewhere else. I have to be somewhere else. And so what ends up happening? There's a beautiful experience right there in front of me. And I felt like so much of life is like that. I'm never present. I'm always going somewhere else. So when I'm at Shachris, got to get to work, right? That's the tzibur. You know that guy with the yard site gets up there, and it's suddenly he's Moshe Rabbeinu saying every single word of Pesukei de Zimra, right? Listen, buddy, move it along, right? You got things to do over here. I got it. And the Neshama should have an aliyah, should be a melitz yosher. I gotta go. Right? Mincha Ma'ariv. Last night, somebody came over to me about Mincha Ma'ariv, or 2 nights ago, said, by COVID, we used to do a dvar halacha between mincha and Erev. And COVID, we stopped it, and we just stopped it. So someone said, maybe we should go ahead and just do a kapitel tehillim, just between mincha and Erev. It's 30 seconds. There were two people standing behind this guy. They're both like unofficial straw poll. I think to myself, we're always running somewhere. So by mincha dinner, shachris, work, shir, the wedding, shir, wedding. Wait. So we never have clarity of thought. Because we're always on to the next thing. Again, this is a bigger topic in terms of mindfulness and just being aware of the karma. But the Piazetzna says, it's incredible. Do you want to know why we get ourselves into trouble in life? It's very simple. We don't have clarity of thought. We just don't have clarity of thought. Because if you have clarity of thought means you recognize that you live lifnei Hashem. And if I live lifnei Hashem before God, then by definition, everything in my life looks different. So kind of coming full circle, one of the beautiful parts of us, it's important to remember, one of the beautiful parts of Yamim Noraim, people say davening is long. Yeah, davening is long. And guess what? Where do you have to be? And when else do you have just a couple of hours just to sit and think about your life? You don't have to say every single word of the Machshava if you don't want to. You don't have to sing every single niggin if you don't want to. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. But utilize the time. Sit and think. Ribono Shalom, nice to see you. I'm always running. God's never running, but I'm always running. Let's spend a couple of hours together to get that. So on Yom Kippur, why is it that on Yom Kippur I feel differently than the rest of the year? Why is it? Siyuketaina, maybe because I'm fasting. That obviously changes everything. Maybe because I know everything that's being decided and sealed on this day. The Piazetzna would say it's much simpler. It's because I'm present. And when I'm present, I have clarity of mind. And I recognize that I am lifnei Hashem. I am before the Ribono Shel Olam. And I will say, all I need is that clarity of mind. And once that clarity of mind occurs, everything else falls into place. The Piazetzna goes on. He says, Kol Iker, listen to this line. Kol Iker chisaron shel nafila ha'adam hu vatishkach kel mecholaleka. I will say, ultimately again, man's entire downfall is encapsulated in that one phrase, that he forgets Hashem. And I will say, forgetting Hashem means a lack of life clarity, a lack of clarity of thought. Shenafal mi machshavto. I don't have clarity of thought. Ve'ino zaka bara v'chazakatam kiyom kippurim kedome. Va'afilu mirza ish techazik u'lahagbir asaytu machshavto lo yuchal lahasmin kach b'machshavto zman yose arach. And here's the problem. Sometimes even when I try to achieve that clarity of thought, even if I get it, what's the problem? Even if I get it, what's the problem? I can't hold on to it. Right? Even if I reach it, I can't retain it. The chayvan shekain. So the Rebbe say, here it is, and this is the line to be underlined. The chayvan shekain. Rebbe say, so the Piazetzna says, the entire essence of the challenge of the human condition is a lack of clarity of thought. It's not that we don't learn enough Torah. It's not that we don't daven with enough kavanah. It's not that we don't give enough tzedakah. Maybe those things are true also for individuals. But lamaisa, the challenge we have in life is that I lack clarity of thought. And therefore, says the Piazetzna, therefore, v'chayvan shekain, kala avodoseinu tzricha lios eich lechazek es machshavosenu, la'archiva, lechaska, or l'shachlala, or l'kasha l'shem mizrach. We'll say, this is the line. Says the Piazetzna, do you know what we are going to accomplish? Here's what we're going to accomplish. Clarity of thought. How do we strengthen our thoughts? How do we expand our thoughts? How do we bolster our thoughts? How do we go ahead and add different dimensions to our thoughts and ultimately attach ourselves to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? The entire avoda of being part of this chaburah, Rabbosai, is to achieve a level of clarity of thought. And clarity of thought means that I'm going to live my life with constant God awareness. That I am before Hashem, going back to the beginning of the Sefer, that I'm a son, not an Eved. I know Hashem not from a distance, but from close proximity. Says the Piazetzna. So I will say, look at the bookends. Moshe Rabbeinu says, why does Klal Yisrael experience downfalls? Vatishkach kel mecholaleka. We forget. Forgetfulness is the downfall of Hashem. Says the forgetfulness of what? Forgetfulness means the loss of clarity, the loss of mindfulness, the loss of clarity. When I don't have clarity of the mind, I lose my God awareness. And when I lose my God awareness that I live in the presence of Hashem, that's where the downward spiral begins. So, space, let's go weiter. I'm sorry, actually, last two lines of Aleph. Rakam tamid tiya. I'm sorry. Shelo rak bizmanam elo b'rashana b'shas tiya. So both say it's very, very shayach. Right? So Piagetza says, of course, everyone has clarity of thought during Tikiyah Shofar. Everyone does. Who cannot be moved by Tikiyah Shofar? But it's not enough to have clarity of thought 2 days a year. Right? That's not enough. So lo rak in Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Michadoma. In other words, say, episodic clarity of thought is not enough. What we're aiming for is consistent clarity of thought. Consistent clarity of thought. Consistent mindfulness. Consistent God awareness. That's our goal. Rak tomid tziyeh bara chazaka ukshura b'kedusha. Both say absolutely beautiful. Space. Let's go weiter. Space. Says the Rebbe. V'hinei. This is an incredible, incredible piece. V'hinei. L'fiha emes. We'll do this piece. I'm sorry. I know we started late, but I don't want to keep you too late. So look what the Rebbe says. V'hinei. L'fiha emes. Avodas ha-machshava tzvi. So we'll say, so now, again, we know our goal. Isn't it good, by the way? Sometimes, you learn things, and you're not sure exactly what you're supposed to do with what it is that you learn. The beauty of the Sefer Rabosai is, remember, again, this is written as a guide to create groups, which I say all the time. We're learning as a larger chaburah. By the time we get to the end of the Sefer, we're going to split off into smaller chaburahs and then do the avod of the Piagetzna. So the Piagetz says, by the way, now, Bosai, I know what I'm working towards. Such a good thing. Sometimes in life, even if you don't know how you're going to actualize your goals or when you're going to actualize your goals, it's great to know what? It's great to know what? What the goal is. What the goal is. Now, I know that sounds strange, but do you know how many of us go through our lives without a clearly identified or articulated goal? Right? I know what I have to do today. Right? I know what I have to do this week. That's great. Good. I have my to-do list. What am I doing with my life? Right? Imagine you're walking out of the shir. Right? Satiated physically and spiritually. Right? And you walk out, then somebody stops you. Excuse me. What's your plan for your life? What do you want to accomplish? What's your answer? Right, you're going to be like, are you looking for silver? You're looking for silver? Right? You're looking for silver? Maybe you go. Hey, let's say, don't look for me, because the truth is I'd have a difficult time answering that as well. In other words, let's say, so the Piagetz says, you got to get clarity. So ultimately, again, now I know what I have to do. I know what my goal is. I need clarity of thought. That's what I need. Clarity of thought engenders God awareness. Shvis Hashem Negdi Samid. And God awareness ultimately propels me in a totally different direction. Base. Here we go. Vine lefia emes avodas hamachshav tzich liaskelu milamata lemalo mitchili yitares gufa va'az machshavto memela titar v'tischazek v'lo shiyaskila adam machshavto barishon. So it's actually very interesting. So the Piaget says, so how do you do this? How do you achieve clarity of thought? So the Piaget says, really, what it first starts with is what he calls milamata lamala. This is a bottom-up process. Bottom-up process. What does that mean? The first step in clarity of thought is physical purity. Is ultimately, again, what's the right word? Refining my physical life. Refining my physical behaviors. Because ultimately, again, the mind, the neshama, resides in the body. If the body is not in an elevated state, the mind and the neshama cannot necessarily reach a state of clarity. So therefore, says the Piagetzna, when we speak about achieving clarity of thought, again, it's a bottom-up process. Start with purity, right? Purify the guf, purify the body, and then you can purify the mind and the spirit. Aval, listen to this. Bedoros harishonim shekevan shcheschilu ba'avolos taras haguf kimura utahora. Ubo gam la'avodas v'shichlu hamachshava mitoch guf kafaf l'kedusha hayaz ha'derech hayos tov l'mechuvan. So we'll say, so again, this is what earlier generations did. So whatever earlier generations mean, right? But earlier generations, so again, where everybody's working towards the same goal, clarity of thought, to create God awareness. Shivisi Hashem Negdi Samid. Where does that start, Rabbi? Say, where does that start? with a pure body. Which, by the way, I just want to point out, this is not new. This already the Torah says. Remember again, Kedoshim to you. Part of the Torah says Kedoshim to you. How do Rashi, the Ramban, how do they define Kedoshim to you? How does Kedusha, how do you define to be holy? Ultimately, physical restraint. Physical restraint. Ramban says, Kadesh es atzmicha b'mashe mutar lach. It means restraining yourself even in the realm of that which is permitted. So the Gemara gives an example. Can you eat meat and wine for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Are you allowed to do it? You allowed to? Absolutely. Absolutely. Should you do it? Absolutely not. Why? Because it creates a gluttonous lifestyle. So Kedusha means refining my physicality. And how do you refine your physicality? Obviously, I'm not allowed to do the things that are asr. But even more than that, there are things that are mutter. There are things that are permitted. But ultimately, again, I shouldn't do it. Well, so I'll just tell you, just as an aside, one of the things that's always bothered me, I have a profound appreciation of technology and modern advances. Two things that just bother me to no end: fake shrimp and par of cheese. Right? So I want to tell you something. I push it. I think it's wrong. I think it's. I'm not commenting on the. I have no basis of comparison. But I'm saying like I'm not talking about the quality of it. I'm talking about why does a yid need to do that? Right? Fake it's also. What? I'm sorry.
Something I miss. It's good to have.
It's good to have.
I mean, I'm Baal Tshuva. I used to have it, so when I have it, I enjoy it.
You're saying
as a Baal Tshuva.
As a Baal Tshuva. Good. Have a piece of kichel and herring. It's even better. It's even better. Right?
Now with Old Bay.
I will say. So I will tell you like this. Okay, I hear that. I will say, but I just want to tell you something. I think that there's a hashkafic problem with it. I think that there's a hashkafic problem with it. The hashkafic problem is what does it represent? It represents an attempt to take something that is unequivocally usher and to make it mutter. And you have to ask yourself, why? Why? And you have to ask yourself a very simple question. Jonas and I have this conversation all the time, right? Right? Why? And does that actually make you more colorful when you're taking the fake shrimp and you're dipping in whatever people dip it into, right? Do you feel the Ribono Shel Olam coursing through your veins, right? Or essentially, am I saying, you know what? The Goyim have it. It tastes really good, right? So I want to have it also. And I will say, but that's dafka what Kedusha is. Kedusha is saying, I know I could have it, but I'm not going to have it. Because placing limitations and placing restraints on myself. I will say, by the way, this is the same thing in so many different ways where there's excess in certain areas, whether it's crazy Pesach programs that just go over the top, that just go over the top. And if that money would be focused on Jewish education, and that money would be focused ultimately on Jewish poverty, we could really move the needle for many things in Klal Yisrael. And the excess, there's excess. Gashmius is beautiful. Gashmius is wonderful. There's a line between ultimately enjoying Gashmius and just totally losing yourself in the material world. And that's where Kedusha is. Kedusha isn't the line between mutter and aser. Kedusha is saying even if something's mutter, it's not good. I shouldn't have it. And it's not that I'm doing an isser. I just shouldn't have it. It's not the right thing. So the Piagetna says something absolutely amazing. The Piagetna says, really, the pathway to clarity of thought doesn't begin with the mind or the soul. It begins with the body. Castillo says it's an incredible yesod. The body is the kli, is the utensil that holds the neshama, that holds the moach, that holds the soul, the soul and the mind. And ultimately, again, if the kli is not tahar, then ultimately the neshama and the mind can't be tahorim either. Think about it, I will say. How can you establish clarity of thought when the guf itself is in a state of disrepair? If the receptacle, if the kli which houses the neshama and the moach ultimately is in a state of disrepair, the neshama and the moach are going to be in a state of disrepair. Therefore, says the Piagetna, in reality, the pathway to clarity of thought is fascinating. It begins with the guf. It begins with Kedoshim Tiyu. It begins with creating a holy physical lifestyle, a holy physical self. And then, after I do that, then I could go on to the clarity of thought. But look what he writes. He says, Lo kein ata. Piagetna says, essentially loosely translated, That's not how we rolled, right? Ultimately, again, contemporarily, we've had to lose translation, right? That's we have to pivot a little bit. Contemporary. Look what he writes. Bidor shel ikvasa de Mashiach. I will say it's so touching to read these words. Piagetna says we have to use a little bit of a different model in our generation, which is the generation of Mashiach. I will say Piagetna writing this in the 1920s, late 1920s, calling his generation the generation of Mashiach. I will say this is the power of the Yid. The Yid always believes that he is in the generation of Mashiach. Piagetna Hashem Yikom Domo, murdered by the Nazis in Machshava Zichram, believed, I guarantee you, to his last breath, that he was living in the generation of Mashiach. So he says, in our generation, the generation of Mashiach, Dar Namoch, Dar Shalakabayim, we are a generation that doesn't have the same level of spiritual standing as previous generations. The Gam Chulshas Haguf Goremes Harbe Li Ader Hamshala She Yuchal Haish Limshal Al Atzmo Al Gufo. So the Piagetna essentially says like this. He says, "V'kasher maschil atas avodoso begufo lezacho l'kadsho zu v'zula also biyado." The Piagetna says we're living in a different world. And again, I just want to point out this is in Warsaw in the 1920s, right? You think to yourself, what was there to do? Or Piagetna, what was there to do in Piagetna in the 1920s? Like what? Like the makolet, like the grocery store? What? There was no football, right? There was absolutely no football, right? There was no football. First of all, it's Europe, and maybe they had soccer. Hey, but Lamaisa, I guarantee they weren't watching it. I would say, so Lamaisa, you think about this for just a moment, that the Piagetna is saying it's very difficult. There's too many pushes and pulls for us. So if we're going to wait to purify the body, you know what's going to end up happening? If we wait to purify the body, what's going to end up happening? What's going to end up happening? Nothing. We're not going to purify the physicality, and we're not going to end up achieving purity of thought either. We'll end up again with nothing. Therefore, says the Piagetna, Lo sha guf yitar mikol shekin machshava shel naga v'lo nasa lezakos lechaska shenshar min michusa hasham. Sorry, I'm just going quickly just because of time. Musa mufuelas lochein. Therefore, says the Piagetna, we'll say a pivot, a generational pivot. Lochein tzrichim lahaschil es ha'avoda b'machshava. Says the Piagetna. So just to follow the train of thought here. In Os Aleph, the most beautiful of the Piagetna told me what my life mission is. I got it, finally. I've been waiting years, decades to figure out what my life mission is. Now I got it. Piagetna, my Rebbe gave it to me. What's my mission? My mission is to achieve clarity of thought. Clarity of thought ultimately allows myself to recognize that I live with constant God awareness, and constant God awareness shapes the way I live every aspect of my life. How do you achieve clarity of thought? In the previous generations, purify the body, and then purify thought. In our generation, says the Piagetna, not going to work. Because if you wait for people to purify their bodies, there's too many pushes and pulls, they'll never end up doing it. The body won't be purified, and they won't reach purity of thought or clarity of thought either. Therefore, says the Piagetna, we have to pivot. And we're going to start directly with creating clarity of thought. We're bypassing an uplifting of the physicality. And not that it's unimportant, but we can't wait to work on clarity of thought until I have purity of the physical. I can't wait. So we're going to bypass that for now, and we're going to jump right to clarity of thought. And therefore, says the Piagetna, something amazing. Listen to this. We'll say, Lachein. Tzrichim says, Latach lizu karanos chaburah b'nei Machshava Tova. And I will say, why is the sefer called b'nei Machshava Tova? Why is this the name? Because the whole essence of the chaburah, I will say, what is the goal? If you're part of this chaburah, what is your goal? Your goal is to become a ben Machshava Tova. And what does it mean to be a son with good thoughts? I mean, Machshava Tova means I want to be a child of HaKadosh Baruch Hu who has clarity of mind. It says the Piagetna, that's why I chose the name for this chaburah as B'nei Machshava Tova, because that's the goal. Kishma Kenhi Lechazek Ulegalos Machshava Tova Bana. The goal is ultimately to reveal and to cultivate a sense of clarity of thought. Machshava Tova. The Shachlala or Archiva Shalote Daka Minadaka Ha'ara Overes Lenitzus Shemis Kabe Mehira Rak Zaka Vechazaka Ad She'es Es Kol Guf Tachniva Chol Chushav Dibatal Tachta. And as you said before, when we speak of clarity of thought, we don't mean episodic clarity of thought. We mean continuous clarity of thought, right? A clarity of thought that exists and continue ongoing. And I will say the goal is that clarity of thought should become the strongest force within me. That clarity of thought drives everything else. Ki ha'im kol ish miskadesh kol gufo pitom bo Rosh Hashanah b'tkiyas Yom Kippur v'chevan sheroim shegam es haguf shlo niskadesh shechol machshava zika v'achnilakdisho. Now, listen to this. But you'll say to yourself, but Piaget, you're contradicting yourself. You just said before that what? Clarity of thought could only occur when? Could only occur when? After what? After physical purity. And now we're saying, but we're going to switch it up. We're going to start with clarity of thought and bypass. So how does it work? I'll tell you how it works. Rabbi say, you ever have a moment of incredible inspiration on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur? Anyone here ever have that? Of course. Rabbi say, when I have those moments of inspiration, clarity of thought Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, am I in a state of physical purity? Usually not. I don't mean physical purity like tumah. I mean have I worked on refining my physical behaviors? Sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the answer is yes. But more often the answer is no. But yet what you see is, Piaget points out, the fact that a Yid could be inspired and have clarity of thought on Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur, even if he has not achieved physical purity, indicates to us that clarity of thought is possible even without physical refinement. And therefore, says the Piaget, once I know it's possible, and once I know that in our generation there's too many pushes and pulls to start with physical purity, if that's where we start, we're going to get stuck on that the rest of our lives and never really accomplish it. We're going to leave that. It's important, but we're going to make that second, and we're going to make the process of achieving clarity of thought first. The Rebbe goes on. He says, "Lama zen na'azov es hamachshava im ruach gevura lishon uluraki ba'aslusa b'kerbenu." Rebbe says because just because I can't purify my physicality, why should I leave my spirit to rot in a decaying body? It's a very strong lashon. What the Piaget is saying is, I will say, essentially what the Piaget is saying is, sometimes the perfect, as Voltaire said, the perfect is the enemy of the good, right? So sometimes, again, if you can't have the model you desire, right? If you can't have the model you desire, then lemaisa, again, you have to choose the next best thing. And I will say, you can't get hung up on perfection, because people who get hung up on perfection. So, you ever have this conversation with people that I've had many of these conversations with people where they don't want to start things unless they know they can finish it, right? So I will say, by the way, you ever meet like a very accomplished person who says that? Right? No. You know why? Because people who say they never want to start things until they can finish it do absolutely nothing. Because there's no guarantee that you can finish anything in life. So when people say, I only want to do something if I know I could see it through, that means you're scared. That means you're scared and you're allowing your fear to paralyze you. So you'll just do absolutely nothing. So the Piaget says, I got it. What's the perfect model? The perfect model on both sides for this is what? Purify your body, purify the physicality, purify the kli, and then move on to clarity of thought. Great. But what if I live in a time where purifying my physicality is just too overwhelming? Like Piaget saying, his times, Allah has kama v'kama our times. So I have a choice. I could get hung up on the perfect model and do nothing, or I both say the most important word in the English language, which is pivot. Pivot. Life is all about pivoting, right? Because again, if you get stuck on living life in accordance with the plan you made, then what do you do when the plan doesn't come to fruition? And the plan almost never comes to fruition. Not all you do, but the most important thing you need to do is pivot. Piaget says, let's pivot. Instead of working on the guf first, why should we allow a compromised guf that I can't fix to prevent me from working on my machshava? So therefore, the Piaget that says, we're going to retune the process a little bit. We're going to work first on the machshava. So I will say, now I know what it is that I need to accomplish. That Allah Chalamaisa, again, what's my goal? Again, what this is going to include, what's my goal? My goal is clarity of thought. Moshe Rabbeinu tells us the downfall of Klal Yisrael is we forget Hashem. Forgetfulness means obscurity of thought. My goal is clarity of thought. Clarity of thought or engenders what? Shivisi Hashem L'negdi Summit, God awareness. And when I have God awareness and a constant ongoing recognition that I live my life before Hashem, everything falls into place. Now that the Piaget has outlined that for us, I will say now, of course, the next step is, how do we do it? How do we do it? I will say, Mir Hashem, we'll continue in this incredible avoda next week. I will say just two quick announcements. Number one, apology again that I was late. Number two, incredible Yashkach to Reb Tzvi. Not that I saw anything. There's mamish like nothing. That's. I think there's a pickle floating in there or something, right? So nice. Incredible Yashkach to Reb Tzvi for the beautiful spread. Yashkach to Reb David. to Rab David. Ultimately, both Scotch and bourbon. A double sponsorship, Scotch and bourbon. And again, Steve put it out on the WhatsApp, and I'll read it again. Ultimately, let us remember, especially as Jews, to steer clear of arrogance, to remain humble. Let us refine our senses into a focus of awareness. As we enter Yamim Noram, we discover our personal tshuva and return to spiritual and moral growth. Amen. Can you Emirat Hashem, the adventure, the journey continues next week. Shkoyach. Ma'ariv.
What was the Voltaire quote?
Perfect is the enemy of the good.